Hey everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations. You're with Simon today. And in today's video, we're going to be looking at the full moon in Capricorn. And this is for the 24th of June, 2021. So I hope that you're well and that this video finds you at a place within your life that is fairly positive and you're feeling upbeat and potentially even considering possibilities in your life as something that can grow you, right? So we've coming off the lunar eclipse and solar eclipse energy pattern. And for those of you that haven't watched the playlist or are new to the channel, I do encourage you to check out that playlist. You'll see it either on Raising Vibrations' actual YouTube page. It will be labeled the Eclipse Portal playlist. Otherwise, I'll put a link in the description below, okay? So go check that out because it's filled with the Saturn retrograde, the Jupiter retrograde, the Mercury retrograde, and as well as the eclipses themselves, okay? So lots of stuff there for us to be able to make sense of how we're moving forward over the next 6 months with this eclipse pattern essentially influencing our cognition, okay? When I talk about cognition, I mean the way that we are perceiving reality and how that perception is being influenced by these archetypal energies. So what I want to talk to you about today is the Mars and Venus pattern that's in the chart. I want to talk to you about the Cancer, Sun and Cancer transit, and also want to talk about the Jupiter and Mercury switching, okay? And I'll explain what that means. So you'll see in the charts that Mars and Venus are in a closing relationship to each other. And again, I'll show you what this looks like in the chart. And so we're experiencing a culmination, right? It's called balsamic phase. And this is something that evolutionary astrology uses to understand what is called a phasal relationship between planets. Each planet, when you look at it in relation to another planet, has a story. They're having a conversation with each other. And this conversation is deeply determined by the nature of the phase, all right? So we're in a balsamic phase relationship between Mars and Venus, which is very important. That means closure. It means deep reflection. It means we are inwardly looking at the nature of our, in this case, relating function, Venus, our values. And we are also looking at how we're going to action or implement or take action around these values that we have. And I'll kind of break that down for us in the chart. Jupiter going retrograde within a few days, and we also have Mercury going direct. Now, in those two videos that are in the playlist, Mercury retrograde and Jupiter retrograde, you'll see I talk about what is called the left and right brain hemisphere. So the association with the right hemisphere is Jupiter, and the left hemisphere is the logical functioning archetype of Mercury. So now what we're essentially having here happen to us. Remember, the nodes are in Sagittarius, south nodes in Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, north node in Gemini, ruled by Mercury. What we're going to have here over the next few days, including this full moon in Capricorn, is a switch between our way in which we have been intuitively making sense of the last couple of months. So we've been making sense over the last couple of months during this retrograde period, the insights, the thoughts, the ideas that we've experienced since January, right? And we've made some certain, we've had some certain revelations or insights during this retrograde period, Mercury retrograde period. And now as Mercury goes direct, we'll have a few more insights that we will begin to take forward with us. So we'll start thinking in new ways, gathering information in new ways. And how that's going to affect us with Jupiter going retrograde is it's going to start reshaping the internal narrative that you use and I use towards the way that we see reality. So each of us looks at reality and says, here's my subconscious belief that I have. And this Jupiter retrograde is going to begin to be affected by the insights that we have received during this Mercury retrograde period. And of course, that will then, over the period of Jupiter's retrograde up until October, will begin to, like I said, reshape and rechange the way that we see things. Now, that's one aspect of our relating function that will be influenced. I don't want to go too deep into it because I can really realize it can be a bit complex. So simply speaking, we're reorganizing the way in which we see reality, how we take in information, what we consider to be valuable and what we don't. Okay, that's the simplicity of that. Now, with that being in the background over there, we also have now this full moon in Capricorn. Now, to me, I think it's a really interesting and very powerful full moon, not because of the reasons that it's just, happening in Capricorn, but because I think that, in my view, this is going to rehash. Now, please, whatever experience you had in 2020, I'm not saying that this is going to happen again, but in 2020, we had, in the earlier parts of 2020, we had Saturn in Capricorn, Jupiter in Capricorn, right? We also had Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter conjunctions in Capricorn last year. We also had the nodes, South Node in Capricorn, North Node in Cancer, for a very big part of 2020, right? Up until at least April. So I see that this energy will subtly, over a period of maybe like a week or so, bring back or illuminate emotions and feelings around what 2020 was like for us. Okay. And so depending on your experience of 2020, which I think for most people was probably incredibly difficult, mainly because you were never taught how to do emotional work when you were at school or growing up. So when you actually had to confront your feelings and emotions about things, it felt like you were on a massive roller coaster of unpredictability, chaos, and uncertainty. And so this energy over here will bring those patterns to the surface again. Now, here's the significant difference, okay? Through 2020, which I talked about a lot on my channel, especially the Jupiter-Saturn Pluto conjunction right at the beginning of here, I said that if you are able to emotionally, or if you're able to begin to look at your emotional dynamic, emotional world, and start to look at where there is wounding, where there are parts of you that are still ungrounded, or that you still need to do emotional work, okay, that will come to the surface in 2020. And lo and behold, through 2020, you saw the collective lose its mind, okay, because it was intense emotions. Now, I don't think that this will be at the level that it will be there as 2020, but I definitely think that we will be experiencing emotional complexes again. And like I said, the difference now is that if you've done the emotional work through 2020, this experience will give you a reinforcement of increased strength. Like, wow, here's how this situation is showing up for me, and here's how I'm responding to that situation. And I notice that now I'm not getting as triggered, or now I'm not getting as affected, or here I am able to hold my emotional boundary, right? So this full moon, I think, will reveal on one level, not doing it intentionally, but just the nature of how these cycles work, bring to the surface and show you where there is some emotional work that still needs to be done, and where you have done and have created very strong anchored in emotional work. Okay, so that's my initial thoughts of this full moon in Capricorn. Now, the reason again why I'm saying this is because the sun is moving through the archetype of Cancer, and of course the moon will temporarily be in Capricorn. And so naturally speaking, we're going to be rehashing those events just over a shorter period of time. Right. Now, like I said, Mars and Venus are in a balsamic phase energy with each other. And so this speaks to closure and culmination. We are closing balsamic phase, reflecting upon and coming to an end of a relating function, as in what I consider to be valuable in my life, what I consider to be important, how I prioritize my day, and what I consider to be the thing that I action, Mars, that provides and nourishes me to be able to live in a way that is helping me grow. That's the narrative with Venus, okay? In astrology, generally speaking, we tend to look at Venus and say, yeah, this is the values. But if we take it one step further and we say, how can we actually use this archetype to improve our lives? Then the conversation looks more like, this is my relating function. These are my values. This is what I consider to be important. And every single day I take conscious steps, Mars, to action those values. And as I integrate them more into my physical world, into my emotional world, I'm able to build a life around those value structures. And so that leads to a deeper, more authentic relating function with society and with people. So what I see here post eclipses with those videos that I put across was, what is valuable to you? And the way that you came to answer those questions was, what do you want to spend your time with? Right? Where do you put your time and energy? Right? Now this means that we have to become more conscious of ourselves. We have to start noticing where our patterns of behavior exist and how those patterns of behavior are driven by deeper unconscious drives, right? That we're driven by our subconscious, or we are noticing and paying attention every single day to patterns and ways of behaving, and we're asking ourselves, is this something that is nourishing me, or is it on the other side of it, if it's just driving me? Okay, am I just being driven by this natural, this auto response pattern? Okay, so where do you put your time and attention? That time and attention, is it driven by a connection to what you consider to be valuable or not? Okay, and so we're going through, like I said, with this full moon in Capricorn, a deep reflection around these patterns within ourselves. Now remember, the archetype of Capricorn and the archetype of Cancer is related to the way that we emotionally identify with ourselves, and then how we extend that emotional identification into the big world. Right? How am I seen versus how do I see myself? How do I see myself is the Cancer archetype, the sun, that's where it's now. And how am I projecting that image, Capricorn, to the outside world, and how are people seeing me? Now, if I'm on autopilot and my values are influenced by the conditioning of my early childhood experiences, and I'm projecting myself into the world based on values that are culturally driven, etc., then that's how I'll see myself. That's how my life will unfold. That's how it will shape itself. What I'm advocating for here is that these energies provide us with the opportunity to reflect and contemplate about how I want to steer Capricorn, direct Capricorn that direction. For the most parts, right? There's a world, of course, with incredible complexity. So we want to pay attention to what we can influence in our immediate environment, right? So we pull the attention back to us. So how are we relating Mars, Venus, and how is this now becoming influenced by my sense of direction? Okay, so that's what I see here with the overall chart. And of course, in terms of how does this apply to your personal life, you would need to take these symbols, like for instance, the location of where the full moon is, and where the sun is and where the full moon is, and you would need to look at what houses that shows up. And that's where, for this full moon, you would synthesize this message with those houses. So for me, the Cancer archetype is the sun is sitting in my 6th house, the moon is in my 12th house. So there's a lot to do with the way that I, for me personally, am organizing my day. All right, 6th house, how do I want to organize my day? How do I arrange my work routine that allows me to be super productive according to the values that I feel are important to reflect out into the world, but also being able to emotionally nourish my needs, right? So how do I want to place that into the world? How do I want to allow my life to be influenced by that? So that's mine personally, okay? Cool. So let's jump into the chart and I'll show you all of this over here, okay? So if we have a look, let me just turn the screen a bit bigger for us. We take the free hand. So there is Mars at the moment, sitting in Leo, and you can see that it's making a square to Taurus, Uranus and Taurus. If we go over here, there you go, there's the square, right? Mars squaring Uranus. Now that's where I'm drawing the information from around the tension between trying to liberate ourselves, Uranus and Taurus, from certain values, Uranus and Taurus, that we have given permission to be alive, Leo, right? And how has that been our way of expressing or creating our world, Mars and Leo? So the tension between these two aspects, Just get my drawing function again, the tension between these two. Remember, I was talking about phasal relationships. This phasal relationship between these two planets is a first quarter square. So we're dealing with us wanting to move forward and implement certain ideas, but we're also a little bit sort of uncertain about how those ideas will land because we're trying it for the first time. So this is about initiating something, paying attention to what you're trying in your environment, and then having a reflection moment, and then going, okay, here's how I adjust. So my message to you with Mars square Uranus is notice how there is a fading of certain values that you no longer consider to be important to yourself. And then there is an emergence of a little bit of hesitance and uncertainty, but a feeling of wanting to take new values and place it into your world. All right. So all you want to do with this square is just give yourself permission to say, hey, I'm trying, nothing else. All right. I'm trying and I'm experimenting with how to take these new ideas into the world. All right. Okay. So that's that over there. Now, if I look at, remember I talked about the balsamic phase energy between Mars and Venus. As you can see there, Venus will also, just so you know, Venus will also catch up to Mars in Leo, and it will create a new phase relationship, I think just after the new moon in Cancer. So just a few days after the moon in Cancer, we're actually going to have Mars and Venus in a conjunction. So right now, between now and the new moon in Cancer and a little bit days after, we will be still in a very reflective stage of trying to initiate new values, getting some feedback from the environment saying this is where it works, this is where it doesn't work. So be patient, all right? Be patient with yourself as you implement new structures into your life, all right? And when I say new structures into your life, of course, I'm talking about an even deeper cycle that is associated with Saturn in Aquarius. And if you notice here, Mars is actually in opposition to Saturn. So this dynamic tension between the old structure, Saturn in Aquarius, and the desire to implement a new structure, Mars in Leo, will show up as exactly how I just shared it, as trying to break out of something new, feeling a little bit restricted or a little bit uncomfortable with the way that it's showing up for you, taking a step back and saying, I'm not in a rush. I don't need to move in a direction at the Speedy Gonzalez rate. I can just do it at a pace that is okay for me. So small baby steps moving forward is my suggestion to you around this full moon. And as we move forward, the full moon is just reflecting a shift in self-identity that is around new values. Okay. The full moon is literally a shift in identity around our new established values. We're becoming emotionally connected to new values, and we are fading out and letting go emotionally of old values that no longer support us. All right. Okay. And that, of course, is being facilitated with this here. And if you notice as well, Venus on this full moon will also be in opposition to Pluto. So not only do we have the relating functions, our ability to action, Mars, and our ability to relate to life and relate to people, these two planets, very personal planets, of course, they are in contact with Saturn and Pluto. So another opposition that is taking place. And again, this opposition just reflecting the dynamic tension between shifting out of the old and emerging into something new. So you've done all of the hard work through the eclipse portal. You've begun to look at and question the narrative in your life. And as you're forming new ideas, you're starting to realize that these ideas you want to implement into your life, into your world, and you're taking baby steps moving forward. Okay. And it's patience. That's what those two planets are saying. They're saying, A, Pluto opposed Venus. You will need to let go, emotionally transform certain attachments to certain values, and Pluto will facilitate that. And Mars will say, take it easy, take one step at a time. Mars likes to run at 1,000 miles per hour, and Saturn likes to say, hey, let's chill out. So my advice to you with these two planets is to have a conversation between when it is needed to reflect, Saturn, and when it is needed to act upon, Mars, unapologetically, so that you get a nice feedback loop between actioning something and then seeing, oh, that didn't work, and then returning back to the Saturn function and saying course correction, as in, okay, that didn't work, therefore I'll try something new. So this is a very trial and error phase, and it's important to give yourself permission to allow for failure to take place, because growth only takes place when we fail, because it gives us an opportunity to recalibrate, reorientate, and reestablish new, better adaptations around our path making and the way that we make sense of our world and our life and how we unlock our creativity. Does that make sense? So again, looking at this energy, you see here that Mars is trining the Chiron function. So again, I talked about this in a little post that I made on the community page. What are you doing right now that is giving yourself permission to act upon the insights that you have been exploring during the eclipse pattern season? Okay. What actions are you taking that are removing certain ideas, belief systems, perspectives that no longer resonate with you anymore? Okay. And if you look at the Neptune here, there's the Neptune. It's sitting in Pisces. It's trining that Venus. So of course that Neptune is also revealing to us, archetypically, that something is fading, Neptune, something is fading, and where new inspiration is coming aboard, right? Where new inspiration is arising. So you want to pay attention to where that spark of inspiration is moving, and you want to be able to let go and release any old ideals that no longer serve you anymore. Okay. Jupiter sitting at 2 degrees of Pisces, that's over there. It's trining the sun, as you can see. So another trine, lots of trines taking place. You can even see the fire trine as well with Mars, Chiron, and the South Node. So if you want to really look at those trines over there, because again, the South Node ruler is Jupiter, it's part of the trine to the sun. We're looking at, again, a deep reshaping and emotional calibration around our attachments to beliefs and ideas and perspectives and values that no longer represent the truth for us, that no longer represent authenticity for us, and we are shifting that away. And 2020 was a year that initiated this all for the collective. We are now at a point where we are looking at that 2020 year and we're seeing the changes that have taken place for us, right? So 2020 initiated a complete collective shift within the way that we relate to ourselves. We are now at a point where we're starting to notice that we can take action in our lives that reflect new direction for us. Okay, cool. So I hope that you really got a lot of value out of this video and that it dropped some insights for you around, you know, how that Mars and Chiron trine is working. The South Node, again, just kind of rehashing some of the things that I've said, all have to do with breaking out of the mold and changing the way that we not only relate to ourselves, but to our life, reshaping language structure within us, no longer saying something along the lines of, I'm terrible at this, but more along the lines of, hey, I'm really interested in this, I love it a lot, and I'm going to take necessary steps and actions to give myself permission to do that in a creative and fun way. And part of the process is seeing myself grow as opposed to looking at myself and saying, I'm no good at this, there's no point. Understand? All right. So deep creative process coming through with Mars in Leo, deep creative process going to start to emerge with Venus in Leo. And then when we actually have that Mars-Venus conjunction in Leo, after the new moon in Cancer, we're going to have this really profound explosion around not only the work that you've been putting in since this eclipse portal, but also how your values have shifted in a way that now allows you to feel that you can self-actualize, right? You can give yourself permission to be empowered in a way and start looking at where your emotional work needs to be addressed and breaking out of those patterns and starting to actually live in a way in which you feel empowered. So that's the intention. What's the direction you're going? Okay. All right, everybody, I really hope that this video landed well for you, as always, and I'll see you in another video. Take care. Bye-bye.